October the 4th, 2024. Guys, you're looking at the 4:45 p.m. Eastern update from the National Hurricane Center down in Miami. And now they have finally put an X up here at 50% chance of it drifting into Florida. And we've been talking about this probably a week and a half now. And it looked like all the models about a week ago were showing a South Florida impact. Now, guys, I've got to say this just so I can keep a straight face. This blob has been either yellow or orange for 2 weeks. Out in here, we watched it and watched it. Nothing would develop. Then it started to get into the northwestern Caribbean, and then the orange or yellow blob would mushroom out into the Gulf. They kept trying and trying to get something started. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And it would be almost like a Monty Python movie, to where you got the guys at whatever manipulation they're using at that time, saying, hit it here, and they're saying, oh, we're trying. But no, it's leaving the Caribbean, it's getting into the Gulf, hit it again, whatever energy, whatever is happening here. And it's kind of strange that the Navy's been pretty much absent, right? You know, they don't like to show their face if they're up to some dirty deeds, whatever the hell they're doing, excuse my language. But now they finally got a rotation going, finally after 2 weeks. And what's been happening, guys, if you're not aware of it, Elon Musk came on Twitter and kind of smoked the Harris-Biden group. He had money out of his pocket, started providing the Starlink satellite updates, kind of like your DirecTV dishes or the other ones that were just basically internet, whatever they were, HughesNet, for free, because people could not communicate and they were trapped up in the Carolina, Tennessee mountains, Georgia, all of that area up through there. There's many people being impacted. Now they've found over 200. And one report today, guys, it's sad that you had a 20-foot wall of water come through there in mud. And now they're starting to find people up in the trees. But FEMA has come in there and tried to stop all the searches from people with personal drones, which I would welcome, wouldn't you? And helicopters rescuing, and food. And Elon tore a hole in those guys. And they think that it's going to help them before this election, but with the truth coming out from the man that owns X, that's going to be very widespread. I know if I saw it, millions have seen it. But they're even stopping him from allowing communications into an area that they do not want the public to see. Word is they're confiscating some of that equipment and locking it up. And another thing coming out about them stopping food, it seems greed has a very important role to play here. Not only that, knocking out a lot of red votes with the election coming up in just a few days, and they're talking about some areas, guys, could be 2 years without power. And what you need to do if you're in any of these areas, you know you have to change the regime because it's been a catastrophe. Now they won't help you. But what they're doing, guys, they're stopping people from coming in with loads of food. Not everyone. I'm talking about a lot of it. And saying, no, this is not an approved vendor. In other words, bids were put in. I guess maybe this happens every year or so, but bids are put in by different supply vendors for food and water. I guess tents, whatever. And those, and you know how money rolls uphill in D.C. with the way, again, the bribes, the payoffs. And so they're saying, no, you can't bring this in. You're not an approved vendor that's getting the bids, kicking the money back to the politicians that are in charge, and allowing people to go hungry and die and starve. You mix that with the fact that with the vote coming up and all of these are red states, that they want to suppress, when you're talking about 2 years without power again, suppress the ability to vote. But you guys in that area, make sure that your mayors or whoever, supervisors, have a way for that to happen, because they think, they think that because they may have even forced this destruction, because actually Helene copied this storm, or this storm has copied Helene's movement the whole time, because it was trying to form into the Caribbean. They kept putting up 50-60% chances, and going down to 40 or 30, and this thing that we're looking at now has been yellow down to 30% for the last few days. They finally got it right. And I can just hear them saying again, if FEMA hadn't taken the money for HARP to send to Ukraine, we would have already had this thing kicked in. But it's going to backfire on the Democrats because of these mountain people, guys. I'm from the country. It's not mountainous here, but we're tough. Country folks can survive. They will never forget, with this vote coming up, what they're doing to him, and using FEMA and Red Cross as an excuse to block other people's. I mean, it should not be up to a vendor that can't even get in there and supply the food, guys. But they're blocking it because it's not vendor approved. I hope the new administration will decimate what we're having to deal with. But now we have the reality of this to deal with now. So we got a 50% chance. You can see where the cone's going over from central to South Florida. It says a trough of low pressure over the western Gulf of Mexico is producing widespread showers and thunderstorm activity. They're saying this broad area of low pressure is expected to develop from the system over the southwestern or south central Gulf of Mexico during the next day or two. An additional development is possible while the low moves slowly eastward or northwestward. A tropical or subtropical depression or storm could form during the early to middle part of next week if the low remains separate from a frontal boundary that is forecast to extend across the Gulf of Mexico next week. Regardless of tropical or subtropical development, locally heavy rains could occur over portions of Mexico during the next few days and over portions of the Florida Peninsula late this week into next week. Now, let's look at the satellite images over the Gulf of Mexico right now. This area, you see right there, that's where the X is at, and it looks like it's trying to form. And something they've been trying to get going for a week and a half. I guess they want to add insult to injury into the southeast, but our Father has this in control. That's why I think they would have loved to put 3 or 4 in here the week or two before election. And guys, please go and subscribe to my Patreon channel, because sometimes it gets hard to not say what's obvious, and that will really cause you to lose your channel. So Patreon has never done that to us in 10 years, maybe 12 years. But please go and subscribe to our Patreon channel. Again, here's what we're dealing with right there. Let's look at it in the infrared. And so we got to forget about all of my rhetoric and deal with what we're seeing. This is it. It looks like it's very powerful. The storms are centered right in this area. It's kind of pushing back into Mexico because you've got a east to west wind shear, not that heavy, but it's there. And this is the front they were talking about possibly having trouble with it. We've been watching that cooler air move in, and we've been getting light showers here in central Mississippi throughout the day. It's really been cool and nice. The being overcast has kept the temperatures nice. We're getting into the fall, but we're still having to deal with these storms. You're still seeing some pop-up systems here, but this is the one they finally got activated, like the mad scientists with the Frankenstein episode, like I put in the thumbnail before this. And it really is becoming comical, guys. Never have I seen them put up all these big globs and hope for something. And every weatherman out there keeps saying these big storms are coming from here and here. When you look at it on satellite and you see none of that, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, this is what we're going to have to deal with. Let's look at some of the other information. And as we look across the entire spectrum, across the Atlantic, guys, Kirk is a monster. It's 130-mile-an-hour Cat 4. Very powerful, but it's being pulled up into the north. Leslie looks like it's going to follow behind it. But the meteorologists here in the U.S. keep pointing to these storms that maybe they will come to the East Coast, maybe not. They're not. This storm is 20% chance of development, but it's so far north, that it's going to come off of Africa around the Cabo Verde Islands. I think the shift that we've seen with our planet has a lot to do with this. Now let's take a look at the Canadian model. You see the storms out in the Atlantic. Everything is taking advantage of a break in the high pressure. Here is the storm they're looking at. It shows it strengthening in the Bay of Campeche, weakening as it touches the northern tip of the Yucatan, and then spinning around in the Gulf. What it's doing is dealing with this orange area of high pressures. Watch as it's here, high pressure's over us, can't quite get there yet. And what the models are showing, look at that, is that we're seeing a break in the high pressure again. That's why it pulses. It comes in there strong for a couple of days. Thank goodness it has not maintained what it did last summer, where it was unbearable. But South Florida, this is definitely going into the areas that we talked about earlier in the week, almost as if it was planned. Not saying it, but gosh, it's just getting kind of ridiculous, guys. But right now, everything is past that point, and it's getting serious. If this thing does not skirt the northern tip of the Yucatan, notice how it's strengthening, very dark, and gets on land, weakens, re-strengthens as it turns, trying to deal with this high pressure. Now notice the break right there. It's still in the Gulf as the high pressure breaks. And so we have to be aware of that it may not go straight into Central Florida. It could, watch in the last few seconds, see that right there. See that opening? And that would put a lot of moisture where it does not need to be. Sometimes, guys, even regardless of who made the disasters, and there was high pressure setting over the Carolinas and the Tennessee areas, and stopped the storm there. That was predicted. I don't know if it was planned, but it was predicted. But you've got to think about this, folks. It's a beautiful part of the country. I've been all through there. Love it. And sometimes it was like been 100 years since they saw anything like that, and we don't even know back behind that 100 years what had happened. But you got to realize if things are changing. I'm talking to my friends here in the Carolinas that are affected by this devastation, man, that sometimes you have to migrate, adapt, or die. That's the rules of climate change. I'm not talking about man-made climate change, but the world changes, the seasons change, the galaxy changes, the solar system changes, and the Earth is affected by all of that. So they're going to make it extremely hard now to rebuild unless you have the cash money to build it without insurance. Build back in those areas. And then will they regulate the permits so strictly that even if you have the cash money, they're going to try to not let that happen, because we're getting reports that folks in that area are being offered cash money for their homes and land. We know there's quartz, we know there's lithium in that area, but I think the most sinister thing about it is the fact that they're trying to stop thousands of people, and some in swing states, from being allowed to vote. So guys, no matter what you do, none of us can go through this another 4 years. The nation will not survive another year of it. Make sure you're able to vote. Make sure you contact your governors, your mayors, your supervisors. Make sure that they give you access, provided even if it's portable voting stations, whatever it is. Things have to change, or this nation is gone forever. It's the only hope we have. It has to be too big to rig. But guys, we're watching this. You see what's going on. Now that we have something fixed, I can focus on the projected path and things like that. But again, I've never seen them hope and pray for 2 weeks to start a storm. The clowns and the demons never cease to amaze me. We're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.